What's up, Wholesale Nation? I'm Undrea King.
And I'm Andy Speed.
And again, welcome to the show. Today, we have a topic that comes up quite a bit, and it comes up in our monthly meetup that we have. People are asking, what numbers matter, right? And in particular, which KPIs matter in this business, right? And so KPIs, real quick, Andy, what is KPIs?
It stands for Key Performance Indicator. So one, I think it's us telling people that the numbers in their business are important, and they're saying, well, I don't want to track them.
Right,
It seems nobody wants to track the numbers in this business until they understand the impact of those numbers. And Key Performance Indicators, or KPIs, in a nutshell, is just the numbers that drive the business. So It could be a high-level number, it could be a low-level number, but the impact on those numbers is the outcome, right? So you want to track the inputs. You want to track the key measurables in your company that determine success.
Right. Perfect. And so, before we get into the show, because that's what we're going to be talking about today, but before you get into the show, if you hadn't had a chance to and you like what you hear, right, just make sure you go on, click the little like button and subscribe. Hopefully you've done that already, and give us a rating and review. We're just getting this thing kicked off, so we'd love your input, and that's what keeps us going, so we know how to continue to give, right? And you can also follow us on Instagram, all right? Besides that, anything else going on in the world of wholesaling, Andy?
No, looked at a few yesterday.
Okay.
We've got our work cut out for us.
Right.
There was a lot of questions that I had that a lot of the wholesalers I spoke with yesterday couldn't answer. How old's the roof? How old's the AC? Is it having any foundation, roof, plumbing, AC issues? And lots of crickets out there. And so if I'm looking at buying a house, before I go look at it, you tell me it's $22,000 in repairs.
Right.
But you can't tell me what that $22,000 is.
Right. And so for those that don't know, we also buy properties, right? And then we also look for properties. We have a robust, a buyer pool that's out looking for deals all the time.
A robust buyers list?
Yeah, I didn't want to say robust because it's not like it's like 1,000 people buying like at once, right? But we got some hungry buyers that are looking for deals, and so we're always out there looking for deals. And you went out there yesterday, and we're talking to some people, but some of the numbers you gave me just was like didn't make a lot of sense.
Some of them didn't make sense,
right?
But I'm capable of moving on to the next one. You try to share some insight. Sometimes people aren't wanting to hear it, but I try not to be too forceful, I guess, in my opinion. Hopefully that buyer's out there for them. I just haven't met them. Right.
And if you are that person, right, and that's why we do this, right, is to be able to give back and help, right? But we're not trying to set us up to be like the smartest person in this business or anything like that. But, I wish I would have had that. The only thing I had in this business when I got started was Google. So if someone would have called me and gave me some advice, I think I would have had an open I think I'd had an open mind and would have listened and say, let me see if I can, cling on to these guys and see what else I can get out of them. Right. So that kind of leads us to our topic is going to be KPIs. And one of the reasons why we brought this up is a number of times when, wholesalers come to us or other people come to us, a lot of times they're trying to figure out exactly what's working and what's not working in their business, right? And a lot of times we are quick to say what's not working, but we can't explain why it's not working, right? And we're part of a mastermind that meets quarterly. And one of the things we do is we go through our key performance indicators, right? And if you walked up there and you couldn't explain, if you walked up there, Andy, and let's say you walked into our boardroom and you said, okay, direct mail isn't working. Okay. What do you think you're going to get next?
What are the numbers?
What are the numbers? Okay. And if you don't know what the numbers are, we're going to talk about that today. What you should be looking for and, why you should keep these numbers. And then the other thing is how you make business decisions, with these numbers. Right.
Right.
So the first thing is why is it important? So why are KPIs important?
Well, with any entrepreneur, the transition from going to somebody that's working on the job where you're taking a paycheck for your time, you actually have to start investing money. Either you're investing money or you're investing time. And so KPIs are important in this business because you want to know what's happening with that money.
Right.
And as soon as you get a grasp on that, when I started in the business, I knew that it cost me $85 to get my phone to ring. And then I knew my phone had to ring 23 times for me to get a deal, on average over 8 months.
Right.
So where I didn't succeed is is actually capturing my leads rather than just the phone calls. But then again, I was pretty consistent in my marketing in the dollar spend and what I was sending, who I was sending it to. So I guess I got a little lucky there in what I was tracking, the calls versus the leads. At that same time, you had a marketing piece that was different. If you were tracking it the same way that I was, your numbers would have been all over the place.
Right. So the marketing piece, and a lot of you guys probably heard of this one, but it was the third and final notice, right? And so if you hadn't sent this piece, this is a piece that would get a lot of phone calls, right? And most of these phone calls are going to be people cussing you out, right? Because it doesn't say anything about real estate, and people call back, and that's basically what it is. It's just to get people to call back. Now, what you're going to have is a high response rate from a marketing piece like that. But we're going to talk about like what should you be looking for? Is that the only number that you're going to be looking for, or is there more to it? Okay. And of course, there's going to be more to it. All right. And just like Andy said, when I started this thing, mine was bandit signs. Right. And one of the reasons why it was bandit signs, the same reason why Andy said that, his was sending out his mail, consistently. Mine was bandit signs because that's what I was doing the most consistently. All right. And I knew to the dollar of what it took to get a sign and put it out, which was $2.84 to be able to purchase a sign and have someone else put it out. And then it took me a little over 300 signs to be able to get a deal. Right. So all I have to do is be consistent with that and watch those numbers. Right. And we'll talk about here in just a second, like what, when did that change? Right. So I did that for a while, but all things will come to an end after a while. Right. And if you're not tracking your numbers, you'll be doing the same thing you did a year or two ago, thinking you're going to get the same result, even if you're consistent. And you just watch your numbers start creeping up, and that'll run you out of business.
So absolutely. The true power behind a KPI is to know where your business is breaking down.
Right.
If you build out that consistency in tracking your numbers, you can tell, you or I go into a situation where somebody says that they have a problem. They're not closing deals. Well, if they have their marketing numbers, they have how many calls they've received, how many leads off those calls, how many leads to appointments, how many appointments per deal.
Right.
We could very quickly break down where their issue is if they're not closing deals.
Right.
It's extremely common for that to happen. Something's broken. I don't know what it is.
Right.
We track to this day, and I love our direct mail tracking. It's by the campaign, whether it's tax delinquent, pre-foreclosure, probate, whatever it may be, quit claim. We track those numbers, what that costs per lead, per deal, per appointment.
Right.
And then ultimately what the return is. And then we track it overall. So we can see how overall our mail system is performing.
Right.
And, and then broken down by each lead channel as well.
Right.
And you've already taken that to marketing pieces as well.
Right. And so that brings us, so you said a lot there, but that also takes us so let's break it down. Right. So what KPIs should someone be tracking, first of all? So the first one you mentioned was like
if
response
we're in direct
rate or
mail.
something. Right.
So all of this is, we want to track our dollars,
right?
So if I send out 1,000 postcards, it costs me $380 plus your lead cost or your list cost.
Right.
So I would track the number of calls, calls to leads. So I would track leads, track appointments, offers, and then your return.
Right.
Or your deals.
Right. And so I want to break that down a little granular also. So why should you track those? So let's take a look at the first one. The first one he talked about was response rate. All right. So that's just how many people call. All right. Now that can be beneficial on certain types of marketing channels, right? It's like, for example, we cold call right now. Not every lead right now is a lead. Right. But we know what we're getting out of it that may come later. Right. So we're going to continue to follow up with that lead and nurture it that prospect till it becomes a lead. OK, so that's your response rate. So that's how many people that are calling just based off your mailer. That's what you're doing, whatever they're doing. They're cussing you out or anything like that. That's your response rate. Now, is a high response rate going to bring you a lot of money? It may not. Right.
I can show you a few ways to make your phone melt.
Right.
It's not going to bring you a deal.
That's not going to bring you a deal. And if you don't have a system dialed in to be able to handle that, you're just going to waste your time. And I saw a lot of people, including myself, included with that, is that when I tried those tricks and I didn't have everything in place to handle that, right? Then what happened was my phone melted. I spent a lot of time trying to weed through a bunch of phone calls that weren't anything, all right? And I wasted a lot of time. Okay. Right. So you got to have systems in place. Nothing wrong with it, but you got to have systems in place to be able to handle that. So that's response rate. All right. And then the next one you talked about is how many leads actually came in. All right. So what do you consider a lead, first of all?
I'm interested in selling.
I'm interested in selling my property. Okay. So that's probably the first real good stat that you have. All right. Because then that's going to tell you when you put your money up against it, you can say, okay, I spent $5,000, right? And I got X amount of leads. So now I can start putting money to actual people who are interested in selling.
So, I mean, when you're measuring your leads, you're sending out communication to these sellers. So you may send out 10,000 postcards. Mm-hmm. You're reaching out to them. You're initiating the conversation. It's those that reply back to you that have the proper makeup for what you want.
Right.
Right. So you've got to measure that because you're sending out communication. Well, how much communication is coming back?
Right.
If it's all calls, no leads, you've sent out that third and final notice or what have you postcard.
Right.
You're going to get a lot of 400 and 500 calls.
Yeah, you got a 3 to 4.
None of them are the people that you want to talk to.
Right.
So did you really have a campaign that supported your needs? I don't know. The only way that you're going to know that is if the leads that you got from that were worth all the phone calls.
Right.
But you can't even make that decision if you're just sifting through, garbage.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Especially if they don't even know why you're calling, right? Or why you sent them some mail, right? They're just really calling to see like, what are you talking about here? But if a person is calling because they know your they understood your message, and now they're calling, and they're interested in selling their house, now we have a lead. Right. We can also look at, okay, how much money did we spend on that marketing campaign? Now we got a cost per lead. Okay. And then you can start tracking some other numbers that come up after that. So then after we have like our, the number of leads that are coming from it, and we have our cost per lead, right? Then what's going to be the next thing after that? All right. Appointments. Okay. This is a key one. All right. So listen to this closely. Like if you're answering the phones or and especially if you end up hiring someone else to answer the phone, like a lead manager and things like that, you really have to track that number. Okay. Because what you've determined is you have a certain amount of leads that you're getting for X amount of dollars. Okay. That lead doesn't become anything until we get out on an appointment. If you're calling and setting appointments to close deals, whatever, but until you get to the actual seller, you still hadn't made any money. Okay. And so for us, we just to give a quick stat is that of the leads that come in, we're looking for an 80% booking. All right. So 80% of the leads that we book, 80% of the leads that come in, we book as an appointment. All right. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. Like when has that helped us? Because that was actually one of the things that we saw a mistake on early on. Right. And then so now
why would you track leads to appointments though?
Right. Because I want to make sure that that's in most cases, what that's doing is the person who's on the phone, it's letting you know how great that person is on the phone at building rapport, getting to know the person, and setting the appointment. Also,
I would argue though, if you're at like 40% appointment set, you need to go back and look at your list.
Right.
The only thing that our lead manager's scrubbing for is, do they want to sell the house and do they have equity?
Right.
So if you're down at 40% appointment set, your lead manager may come back when you question it. If you know that this number is down, you'd say, hey, why are we at 40%? We should be at 80%. 80% is our norm. Mm-hmm. Well, they don't have equity. So then you got to go back and check your list that you're mailing. But you wouldn't know that if you weren't tracking your KPIs.
Right. You wouldn't know that. And I can, I can tell you all the failures, right? And, I just give you a quick story. All right now based on that. So when I first started, one of the things I did, my very first list is I pulled a list that I thought was a super hot list. The properties didn't have any mortgages against them, right? So I said, okay, I got very high equity. They don't have any mortgages against them, and I had the price criteria, everything else dialed in, right? But every time someone called, they was like, yeah, I'm interested in selling. All right, great. So how long you own the property? I bought it last month. I bought it 2 months ago. Bought it 3. So what I forgot to do was put in how long ago. All right. How long they owned the property. Right. And all I was getting was investors who had just had just bought their property cash, and they were calling thinking they were going to get a lottery ticket. Well, but you can say that my appointment setting, my leads were up there because people were interested in selling. My response rate was up, right? They had equity, right? But I missed one criteria, so that messed up my appointment setting abilities, right? So then again, I'm going to be somewhere around 30-40%, right? So there's multiple things that you can do. That, and then also be able to train so that you're setting appointments properly. Okay. So now that you have now you have appointment set, the next thing is, and that is your salespeople are going to go out.
Yeah, it's your conversion.
Right. So what does your conversion look like? Right. Because you can do all of that. And we've been there. We've done all that work to get to that part. And then if your conversion's at 5 and 6%, it's going to be kind of hard to make it in this business, when you say.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. It would. But you have your metric to get better.
You know what to work on.
You know where you need to get better. That's in conversions.
Right.
So you should be, at least in our market, at least 20%.
Right. Yeah.
Closing.
Right. And and I know we're going to discuss all this. So we determined this, and one, about a year or so ago, that was one of our issues was conversion. Right. So we went out there and invested in a sales training program to be able to help us with that, to take our closing from 6 and 7%, exactly where it was at, to be able to get it above 20%. Okay. To get more out of the number, but you won't know that. All right. You got to figure out what it is. Right. It could be back on your lead manager. It could be your salesperson. But if you're keeping your stats, you'll know how to make the right triggers there. Okay.
Absolutely. And then becoming an entrepreneur is that new mindset, right? Mm-hmm. So it's, I have to spend money to make money. Right. It's no longer saving. It's, you want to know where your dollars are going. So if you have your KPIs down and then you can track your return on your marketing dollars, then the formula becomes, how much can I spend? Right. When you see every time I put $1 out, I get $6 back. Right. Absolutely. Well, I mean, if you put $1 into an ATM and it spit out $6 every time, it's how much more can I put into this ATM? Right. It's validation for what you're doing, as well as is exposing areas where you need to get better. Right. And can I add a caveat to that part? Sure. Right. Because I got so many stories about, if there's anything left, I got so many stories about Draco. And I know we're going to talk about when, kind of when it benefited us. But so Andy said something very key there, right? So you're making decisions based on those KPIs, right? And you're figuring out, okay, you got something working and now you want to make it better. Okay. When you're getting ready to make it better, all right, only change one thing. Oh, Lord. Okay. Only change one thing at a time. Okay. Because if you change more than one thing, you'll never know what was the thing that affected, and you could end up breaking it. Okay. And that way you can continue to add other things onto it later, but you can only make one change at a time. All right. And then monitor those KPIs, see if you get a plus and minus. Right. And then just keep going with it there until you realize, okay, maybe I can do one other little smart tweak. Right. Make that one tweak. Right. And then that's it. Okay. That's how you know whether something's working, whether you're doing your postcards or anything like that. If you're going to go from pink to yellow, then make sure all the verbiage is exactly the same. Fonts is exactly the same. Don't go pink to yellow and then you change the font, you change the wording, you changed everything. You don't know what worked at that point. Okay. You don't know if it was what you said or was it the color change. Right. Okay. So it's simple things like that. So when you get dialed into your KPIs, it's going to tell you a lot and you will want to change a lot because it's like, oh my gosh, this is not working. This is not working. You want to change a lot of things, only change one thing at a time. Okay. And then the ultimate goal is, like you said, is like once you get all these numbers together, you want to look at it's actually two more, right? Your other one is once you get a property under contract. Okay. So what's your return on investment? All right. So, what's your average deal size? Okay. And so what does that tell you? I mean, I guess you could say if you have a lot of fallout. We don't measure fallout, but it's very few and far between that we have a deal fall through based on, something that we did, which was the wrong offer. But if that's in your market, if that's in your play, like I know that if you're doing a lot of like locking up contracts over the phone, that you need to make sure that stats in your numbers, right? It absolutely will affect. It's going to affect it big time. I'm closing at 50%, but then only 50% of those are actually closing. Right. You can really trick yourself into believing that you're an expert. Right. When in reality, you're producing at 50% of what you think, or you're measuring rather. Right. And so you have to make sure that you're accounting for that, right? I think the easiest thing in regards to KPIs is when you're starting out, it just has to be an Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be sexy. It's a table. It's a very basic table in Excel. If you want to get a little sexier with it, you can throw a pivot table on there so you can do some measurements over time and whatnot. But it's really just, if you're cold calling or if you're using direct mail, it's just a list. I mean, it's just a list of everybody that's called you back. Is it a dead lead or is it a lead? And that's just a table. Did it end up to an appointment? Did I make an offer?
Right.
And it's just a series of yes and no's, or, fill in the number for whatever it is. I mean, it's very simple.
Very simple. And, when I started with this, just like Andy said, I didn't know anything about making pivot tables. So I just made a chart, right? And you can keep up with it just simple as that. Every week, put the new number in. And if you know how to put together a formula that can add those numbers, week 1 plus week 2, and then you got a total, that's really all you need. If you can't do that, if you got a calculator or you can count past 10, you can probably get this thing together. Right. So that's really all you need, and to be able to track those numbers, right? How much you're getting out of your deals, like how much money your salespeople are bringing in. Then you have your true number, and that is how much money does it take to make money, right? So if you put in, for example, let's say that you put in $2,000 in marketing, and for every dollar that you put into marketing, now you know that I get $5 back. Right.
Or it costs $2,000 per deal. If you spend that $2,000, you get one deal. It's $2,000 per buy.
Right.
We have some campaigns that are $1,000 per buy. We have some campaigns that are $3,000 per buy. But overall, when you take an average of our entire direct mail system, it's $1,800 a buy. Right now. So we have had some that have skyrocketed. They're up there in the $4,000 range.
Right.
We've had some that have produced much lower.
Right.
Well, that'd be the $1,000 range. We rarely have anything below $1,000. But we take the average of the system. We're at $1,800 per buy. We know the system overall is good. We can break that down into the different lead channels, and then each one of those lead channels, we can still say, every dollar spent, we got this much back.
Right.
And so as long as it's getting above $4 back, we're relatively happy, and we're still going to continue to put that money into that same mailing campaign.
Right.
But we're still watching it month by month, campaign after campaign.
And that's the key right there, because that determines like where you put your money at that point, right? So okay, this one's hot right now. You can only take a lead channel so far before it starts to costing you, the costs start going up. But if you're monitoring that, you'll know what to do, right? You'll know where to put your money, and that's what your tracking your KPIs is all about. So examples of Draco, like times that we've done it. I know I've given some examples of when we made that change, but I'll start with not our current lead manager, but about a little over a year or so ago, we went into our mastermind meeting and we thought, everything was going good, right? We had a ton of leads coming through and we're just killing it, right? And then one of the stats we brought up was our lead to appointment. And I think that at that point we were like 30% of our leads were becoming appointments. Okay. And we didn't even gather that was a problem, because I don't even think we didn't track it until that meeting, right? It was like, wait a minute, why are we only setting 30% of our leads to appointments? Okay. So what did we end up doing?
I don't want to say because she listens.
All right. So we had to do some training and development.
We did some training.
So we had to do some training and development and to make sure that we saw some improvement. All right. So the first thing was like, let me listen in. Let me see what you're saying on the phone. Right. Let me give you some guidance on what you can say to people, how to get out their true motivation, how to connect with people.
Yeah. I know what we did first.
Right.
We spent, 2-ish months.
Right.
Doing training and development.
Right.
And then just decided that
it wasn't a good fit.
It wasn't a good fit.
Right.
So we had some, when people want to do a good job, she was, showing up on time, showing up early, actually, waving the company flag. Everything was great with the exception of a personality.
Right.
We recognized that we didn't have a salesperson in that seat and we needed a salesperson in that seat.
Right. And a lot of that was on us. Right. And that's a take for another episode on
right butts in the right seats.
Right butts in the right seat. So that's another topic. But we had a great person, just not for that seat. Right. Unfortunately, we didn't have another seat because we're a new company getting going. We didn't have another seat for that person to fill. Okay. So that's basically how that happened. So that's one time that I saw that we went like maybe 3 or 4 months, or a lot, probably longer, when we pretty much burned some leads because of that. So
we had at any given time 100 leads that were sitting in a queue.
Yeah.
And
there was nothing happening to them. So what other instances can you think of that we've made?
Man, in my mind, I could totally nerd out on you with KPIs because my background is planning and scheduling.
Right.
And all of the inputs to creating a system, everything had a measurable.
Right.
So in those measurements added up to a system, and the system produced X at X efficiency. And I think it's just extremely important to know those numbers in your business. That way you know where you need to improve.
Right.
It's not hard to track them. You can use a system like CallRail that will track the numbers on your marketing pieces, so
Right.
you know when people call back to what it was, and you can easily export that data into Excel. So you can see how many calls you got. You can make notes in CallRail to determine whether or not it's a lead.
Right.
And drive your business forward. I mean, you're going to see where you need to push forward, where you could be pulled forward. You can compare notes with people in your industry,
Right.
or in your area rather, to see if what you're doing aligns up with where the market is.
Right.
I mean, all those things, but you have to track your KPIs in order to drive those decisions forward.
Right.
If not, you're running off of feels, and feels. If I'm spending my money on marketing, I don't want to run off of feels.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that just doesn't work out. So with that said, I mean, I pretty much wraps up the show. Is what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, if you're not tracking your numbers, then it's going to be really hard to know what's working in your business and what's not working. It's going to be really hard to grow your business. So the best time to start tracking those numbers is right now. If this is your first day, you need to know what you spent and what's going out of it, right? Because then you'll be able to make decisions from the beginning on how to grow your business. All right. But that's all that we have for today, guys. Again, thanks for listening. And that's it. Appreciate it.